So let's talk about relationships, my favorite topic. We all have them, right? They're all around us. They're at work, they're at home, with little ones, with adults or supposedly adults. We're always interacting in some way, and sometimes we get each other and we get on well, we work well together and things flow, and sometimes there's friction. So let's take a look at, by using a tool called SDI, which stands for Strengths Deployment Inventory, we're going to take a look at how these things happen, you know, how sometimes we just can get someone and sometimes we have struggles. I'm going to share my screen and show you some slides. So you all, well, some of you have seen that picture. It's really that's the way it is. Eh? We look at something and we see it and the other person disagrees with us. Why? Not because they're trying to be difficult, but because they actually do see and experience the same thing, but in a different way. We'll talk more about that going forward. So let's have a look first at how we see ourselves versus how others see you. Has it ever happened to you that you've got into trouble by not even doing anything wrong? In your view, you were just trying to do something. You know, you were running late for work or for an important meeting, and so you cut somebody off in traffic. You didn't mean to. You didn't do it intentionally to cut them off, to upset them, annoy them. But what you did was based on a positive intention from your own being, which is, I'm running late, I've got to get there, you know, it's so important that I get there on time. Okay. So, you know, you forget your sister's birthday. You didn't go around intending to forget, but you got busy. You were distracted by some other things that were going on. So how it comes across is never the way you intend it. So, you know, no, I wouldn't say never, but it often comes across differently to the way you intend it. So let's look at how that works. We see ourselves based on what's going on inside of us, our thoughts, our intentions, what's driving us, what we're trying to do. We don't see ourselves by our behaviors. It's almost impossible. You can try and look in the mirror, but even that's not really going to cut it. But other people can only see our behavior. They cannot see what's going on inside. They only see what's happening on the outside based on their perception. Okay, so we've already got a conflict there where we're seeing two different things. I'm not seeing what I'm doing wrong. I'm not seeing that I'm doing anything wrong. If I'm sitting quietly in the corner in a meeting and I'm not saying anything, somebody might accuse me of being passive aggressive or something, withdrawn, disassociated, disengaged. I wouldn't see that. I'm seeing myself as, if I were to answer you, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reflect, I'm trying to process. So with that in mind, let's go and see what we can do about it, because this is what is happening. The thing is, in relationships, as we said, we have to be more effective in relationships because they're all around us. In our personal lives, it's so important. With our kids, our partners, our family, friends. At work, it's so important. We have to be effective, and we can only be effective through our relationships because we rely on other people. But to be effective in relationships means we need to appreciate, accept, and understand other human beings. We have to understand ourselves. And all of that begins with awareness. And this is the journey that we're beginning here. That thing called emotional intelligence, you know, how we can manage ourselves and manage relationships. There's two parts of it. There's the emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness plus self-management, knowing who I am, what drives me, what my fears are, what my triggers are, and being able to manage my responses so that I don't get, act from a place of being triggered, for example. That gives me an ability to be emotionally mature and intelligent. The other part of it is how to manage my relationships. And that's social awareness. That requires me being aware now of somebody else and then being able to manage that interaction between us. That is so important for being effective at work or anywhere. So this is the SDI. This is what it looks like. It's basically a triangle and it has 3 colors in it. And then in between there are blends of colors. Now, everybody fits onto this triangle in some way. After doing an assessment, you would be plotted somewhere, let's say over here in the blue area as a dot, meaning that's your motivational value system. And then the arrow, which tells you where you go when things are not going so well. It is a tool specifically for relationships. If we look at that EQ model, it's about emotional intelligence and social intelligence. So it's based on 4 premises, and we're going to take a look at each of them. Number 1, and no particular order, but number 1 is that behavior, all our behavior is driven by motives, as you saw with that bulb in the previous slide. It's driven by what's going on inside of us. It comes out as behavior, like I'm doing right now. I'm behaving based on a motive in that I want to teach something and share something through a video, which is what I'm doing. The second thing is that strengths, we all have strengths. We all have talent and characteristics that we can do so easily and that have great effect. But when we overdo them, they can turn into weaknesses. The third premise that underlies everything here is that our filters influence our perception. We'll talk more about that in a moment. So if I am a friendly person and I see others through my filter of friendliness, I'll be judging them through that filter, right? Etc. And then the fourth premise is that our motives change the moment we go into conflict, either with internal conflict or conflict with somebody. So the basic premise there, the first one, is that behavior is driven by motives and that there are only 3 primary motives. There's the blue, the red, and the green, and they all fit into the triangle there. The blue is all about people, wanting to help others. The red is all about performance, wanting to achieve results. And the green is all about process, wanting to establish order, do things the right way. Now, nobody is one only. So that's the great thing about this tool. They're blends. So if I landed over here, for example, as my motivational value system, most of the time I'd be coming from a place of concern around people, wanting to help and support and nurture and care for. Most of the time. But look, there's also a little bit of green in me, that much, because there's the scale. And if I said I was there, I would also have a tiny bit of red in me. Okay, can you see that? So it's just a blend. It's just like a neighborhood. It's not a particular section that we are only ever that color. But what happens is everybody in your team or your group or just yourself or yourself and your partner, we see where we end up on this triangle, and it reveals a whole lot of things about us. It won't tell us exactly who we are, exactly what we're thinking, because that's always based on our own thoughts, based on our own filters. But it can tell us what motivates the individual. And when we know that, we can do a whole lot of things. We can build bridges. We can speak their language. We can understand what motivates and drives them. We can respond in a certain way to them. We can explain ourselves in their language. So there's a whole lot of advantages to knowing who the other person is. So let's have a look at, very quickly, we'll whip around the triangle and see what does it mean. There are the three primary areas. Then there's the middle section, which is called the hub. And then you've got the blends, red and blue, red and green, and blue and green. So let's have a quick whip around to see where the differences are. So people who land up in this region are generally people who are primarily focused with accomplishment, getting tasks done, achieving results, setting goals, having direction, acting, taking decisive actions, and then claiming rewards. I don't know why the question mark is there. The green is around people who land up in the green area here, anywhere in that, and obviously the more green, the deeper the green and the stronger this is, or the more often people are focused on this. And that'll be around meaningful order, thinking things through, analysis, independence, practical, fairness, like real, let's be real, people who like reality. And then the third one, the blue one, is people in that area, in that region, they're all about focusing on people, growth, protection, welfare, caring, helping people who can genuinely benefit, nurturing, making you a cup of tea, how are you feeling, those kind of people. You recognize them, I would say. Eh? It's quite easy to spot, to recognize yourself and other people. Often when I do this with a group, they will very soon, within 15 minutes, they will come to a conclusion about where they sit, and probably about 80 to 90% of the time they're right. Some of the time they're quite confused, but mostly they're right. So in the middle, we've got those who are more concerned about flexibility, because they're in the middle. They can do any of those. They can do the action goals, they can do the people stuff, they can do the analysis and the lists and the working through things and what have you. But what drives them is adaptability and collaboration, teamwork. Then we get the blends, blue and red together, mean those people in that area also like to achieve results, but like to help others achieve results. The green and the red, they're also assertive like the reds and competitive, but with fairness and intelligence and carefully thinking things through, strategizing, etc. of the green. And then the blue and the green is about self-sufficiency. Their focus is all about being self-sufficient for themselves and then helping others to enable them to be self-sufficient as well. They do not like feeding people fish. They like to help people learn how to fish. Okay, so that's really very high level what goes on with the different types of people. Now, the second premise is strengths can be overdone, which means that we may have a strength of, let's say, being assertive. Right? Would you agree that's a strength, being assertive or confident? If we push it too far, or if we do it in the wrong context, or if we do it too often, or too intensely, then it comes across as a weakness, or, or it could cause conflict between us and someone else. So if I'm really confident, and I overdo it, or in the wrong context, or whatever, it could come across as arrogance. Got it? Even things like friendliness, for example. So here's a list of strengths. These are the ones that we play with in the SDI. So let's say quick to act. Quick to act is really a great strength. Mostly reds, those in the red region, somewhere around there would have those strengths, but it could also be a blue or a green. Quick to act is a strength. If we overdo it, it can come across as impulsive. And that goes for all of these strengths. So nobody gets away with it. We all have strengths. Now, we talked about what's going on inside is different to what's being perceived. So if we look at what's the positive intention, if we see somebody smothering us, for example, like, oh, stop it, leave me alone, for goodness sake, Maybe I like my independence and my space, and you're just wanting to, you've got the blue and you just want to make me happy. and give me what I need. And I'm saying, whoa, back off. It's coming across as smothering. If I were to ask, what's the positive intent behind that? What do you think it might be? Yep, trying to be helpful. So the person is, I'm just trying to be helpful, and you're seeing it as smothering. Same thing as aggressive. I'm coming across as aggressive, as strongly aggressive. What's behind that? Maybe I'm just trying to be assertive. I'm trying to assert myself, and I'm overdoing it. Or I come across as distant. I'm trying to be reserved. I'm trying to process something, but I'm looking like I'm distant. I'm not trying to be distant. Same thing, I'm not trying to be intrusive. I'm actually trying to be sociable. Okay, so that is going on all the time. We see ourselves through this, what our intention is, and generally, we can have another conversation about that, but generally it's a positive intent. Being helpful is positive intent. Smothering doesn't feel like a positive intent. It's not experienced as a positive intent. Okay, so we all have things that we are strong in and things that we are not so strong in. And those things that we are strong in, we can sometimes turn the dial up too high. So again, awareness, if we can be aware and appreciate the differences, and we can finally become more effective in our relating. So let's look at this, fill in the blank. Of those, let's say of those strengths, which one would you be able to own? Which one could you put your name on and say, that is me? So just take a look and pick one of those, and then let's go and have a look. So I'm going to pick, let's say, modest. Okay, so I'm very modest, let's say, and I'm shy, and I sort of keep things back. So a strength of mine that you can rely on me for is my modesty. I'm always modest. When in using this strength, what I'm trying to do is, not step on people's toes and, reserve my judgment and not brag too much, because it goes against who I am, let's say. When I overdo modesty, how it comes across is that I'm putting myself down, actually. I'm belittling myself, and I'm not taking the opportunities that are there, maybe. What I could do to change that, or to have a better effect, is maybe practice stepping out a little bit and, just checking with myself, is it necessary to be modest here? Is there something I can do that can help me get out of my shell? That's just an example. And you can do the same with yours. Okay. So, yeah, we looked at this picture. Let's look at what's happening. How come we see different things? How come we don't all look at one thing and see the identical thing and have the identical experience? The reason is we look at something and we see it through our thinking. We have perceptions. You can see and hear and taste and smell and touch. But we translate that into our thoughts. Our thoughts about that thing come into play. And then the thoughts are the ones that give us the filters. Okay, and then our likes and dislikes and preferences about those things. So let's have a closer look. There's a tree, right? Would you agree? There's a tree. Now, let's see, who's this? If I come along and I look at that tree, I don't see the tree for what it is. I see this tree. Because in my mind, a tree means certain things. I have certain filters that come into play immediately, and then it gets translated or interpreted into my version of what I'm seeing. And for me, that is reality. That is my reality. I see that, and that is my reality. Now you come along. You look at the exact same thing. And you've got very, very different filters. And you come out with a very different interpretation. You don't see what I see at all. You don't see that. You see what you see based on your own filters, your own perceptions. So we've got two very different versions of something that's right in front of us. And we're talking across each other because we think we're seeing the same thing. We think that that is what the other person is seeing. You're thinking that that is what I'm seeing. So that tree could represent a person, another person. Somebody says, Jane's such a lovely, wonderful, helpful person. And I look at Jane and I go, no, she's not. She's intrusive. She should mind her own business. So it could be a person, your boss, and how different people perceive your boss. It could be a situation. It could be COVID-19. It could be a world event. It could be a flight overseas. One person will see it as joy and happiness and have all these wonderful feelings that go with it. Another person might see it as the biggest fear, the biggest danger and threat on the planet at the time. And they'll have different feelings. So that is the situation. We see something in front of us. Even a couple who've been together for more than 15 years are still going to have different experiences of the same thing. They're still going to assume that the other one is experiencing what they're experiencing, and they're still going to be confused when there are differences, or angry or annoyed or whatever. Okay. And then people try to have a conversation, and in the conversation we go even worse. I mean, all we've got is words, body language, tone, all of that stuff. But I'm trying to describe what I'm seeing. Very difficult when all you can see is that. But we'll talk more about the communication and why it's so difficult and what you can do about it in another video. Okay. Because that's what causes the clashes. So I hope you've got something from that around the SDI, Strengths Deployment Inventory. It's something that I do a lot when I do assessments with my clients, when I'm working with them. Not everyone, but often it's quite valid. I've done it with parents and their teenagers to understand each other better. I've had great success with couples who are about to embark on a marriage or a long journey together, or, and they're trying to get a better understanding of each other. And I've used it in teams, board members or executive members or working teams to help get past those hurdles that would normally take ages to overcome. Because in time we get to know each other, and we get to know, that whole forming and then storming, norming and then performing. We generally do that, but it takes time. Whereas understanding this helps to get through that whole cycle a lot quicker, so that people can become more effective. I hope you got something from this video. I'll see you in the next one.